Hi there. Welcome to the Yoga for Tennis Breathing Challenge Day 3. If you missed days 1 and 2, please check out those videos on my channel for your review, as they'll give you a better overview of what we've been trying to accomplish so far, improving our breathing in honor of National Yoga Month, but also in honor of our desire to want to improve our tennis game. My name is Margaret Bannon. I teach tennis and yoga, and today we're going to work on how to synchronize movement to breath, first on the mat, and then I'll demonstrate how to incorporate this into your tennis practices. So for a moment, let's recall days 1 and 2 of the challenge, just to give you a little bit of a reminder. We started with becoming aware of the breath. That's the very first thing to set the stage for the breath. And then we practiced a technique with a straw called straw breathing, so that we were working on exhaling through the straw so that the inhalation would spontaneously occur. This was to mimic what we're working towards in the actual hitting of the strokes. So today we're going to do the same, not with the straw, but that inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, with movement in the controlled environment of being on the mat, so that we have a little bit of a background for when we try this on court. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so to keep up with the rest of the challenge. I'll be releasing videos every morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the US, so that you can keep up with the channel, or challenge rather, and at a later time you can access these practices on a playlist created specifically for the challenge as well. Going forward, I also release videos every Tuesday for Yoga for Tennis Tuesdays. Some practices are on the mat, some are on court. So feel free to check those videos out as well to keep up with your yoga practice after the challenge is over. Also give the video a thumbs up if you try this. I'd also love to know what your experience is with these practices, what questions, what comments you might have with regards to your Yoga for Tennis breathing. So please let me know how this goes for you. So with that said, shall we get started? The previous days we worked seated. We're going to start on our backs today, just because of a couple of things that we're doing. But some people also find it easier to connect to the breath on the back. So to give you an idea of what we're going to do before we come on to the back, we're going to be synchronizing movement to breath. For example, as I inhale, I might reach my arm up overhead. As I exhale, I might lower my arm. And we'll be taking some simple movements, building, so that we begin to find a rhythm, much like we would in the actual hitting of our tennis strokes. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of how to do this on mat. It might take you a couple of times to repeat this practice before you're able to integrate on court, but everybody is a little bit different. So just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and come onto our backs into a posture we call constructive rest pose. So as I come onto my back, I'm going to bend my knees. This is just a nice way to protect the back on the way down. And some of you will want the padding, maybe a blanket, a thin pillow to pad the head, especially if you notice that your head spills backward tremendously, or if you're just simply uncomfortable. So I'm going to lower myself down. Notice how I'm doing this with bent knees. And I'm going to adjust so that if I'm using propping it only beneath my head, and I can have my knees bent, feet about hips width apart. Some people like to have the feet wide with the knees falling towards one another. Find where you're going to be comfortable with regards to your lower half and also the arms. The palms can open towards the ceiling or the sky, or you might find that bringing the hands to the belly feels a little more natural. So either way, find a place of comfort, come to close your eyes, or maybe you're fixing your gaze to a spot on the ceiling. And before we come to our breath awareness, let's do a little centering, just feeling the body in this new position. So we can do that in beginning to feel the feet on the mat, and in feeling the heaviness of the hips, and in noticing which parts of the spine meet the ground. So just be with all of the spine's natural curves, where it touches the mat, where it doesn't. And then you'll feel the back of your head heavy. And then begin to notice your shoulder blades. Feel the backs of your arms, the backs of your hands. And with your next exhalation, you might feel as if your entire body is giving in towards the mat, almost like you're giving yourself the permission to truly be here on your mat, nowhere else. And let that be an introduction into becoming a little more aware of the breath. So, as we've practiced in our previous practices on day 1 and day 2, I want you to begin to notice where you feel the breath in your body. Does your breath have a sound? And it's okay if it doesn't. It's more in the searching of the sound, or maybe you're deciphering the sound of the breath against all other external sounds. And what is the quality of the breath like today? How do your inhalations feel in comparison to exhalations? And now that you're a little more aware of your breath, I want you to recall the straw breathing exercise we did on day 2. And I want you to start to inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth as if you were still exhaling through that straw gently. So, working gently, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. And the idea here is that if we focus on the exhalations, we can allow the inhalations to naturally occur without straining or grasping for the inhale. The exhalation is eventually a release as it will be expressed in the eventual hitting of our strokes on court. Some will go on to continue to breathe out through the mouth in this manner. Others will breathe out in the form of a grunt, depending on what feels most natural. And now let's go ahead and see if we can link a little movement to this type of breath. So we're going to start very simple and then we'll build. So I want you to wait for your next inhalation to arise. And as it does, I want you to go ahead and inhale as you reach your right arm up overhead. No need to touch the hand to the ground. Exhale, lower the arm down as you exhale through the mouth. Inhale, reach the left arm up overhead to comfort. Again, the hand may or may not reach the ground. Exhale, lower that arm down at your side. As you next inhale, we reach the right arm up overhead. And as we next exhale, we lower the arm down. We inhale, we reach the left arm up overhead. And we exhale that arm down. So I want you to continue on your own. We're going to do about 4 more rounds around being right side and left side. And ideally, I want you to start to move to your own breath rhythm now rather than my call. So what that means is you might have felt that I was moving too fast or too slow for you, because ultimately you're going to be moving to your own breath pace. For example, if you found that you were holding your breath, that would mean that you need to speed up your movements a little bit more. And so let's see if we can find a rhythm here little by little. See if we can allow Those exhalations to feel good, like a letting go sensation. When you're done with your rounds, take a couple of resting breaths. It's always a nice idea to check in with the body. Sometimes we got out of sync, sometimes we were holding the breath. And so it's a nice opportunity to reset just like you would do in between points. So we're talking a little bit more about synchronizing breath to movement in the actual hitting of the strokes. But as we take these little mini breaks in between movement, this mimics what we might do in between points to come back to the balancing out of the breath. So let's go ahead and add on now. On your next inhale, this time we'll reach both arms up overhead. And as you next exhale, we'll lower both arms down. So it's an inhale, reach both arms up overhead. As you exhale through the mouth, lower both arms down at your sides. Again, start to find your own breath rhythm. If you're following along with me, we've done 3 rounds. Let's do 3 more. And then again, let go of the movement once you're done, not rushing if you're not quite in line with my pace. Once again, we'll come to add on a little more movement. So as you next inhale, let's reach both arms up overhead. As you exhale through the mouth, let's gently hug the right knee in towards the chest with the hands. Inhale, reach the arms up overhead. Lower that right foot down. Exhale, hug the left leg in towards the chest with the hands. Inhale, reach the arms up overhead. The foot meets the ground gently. Exhale, hug the right knee in. Inhale, reach your arms up overhead. Exhale, hug left knee in. We've done 2 rounds. Let's do 4 more on our own. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling gently through the mouth. Just beginning to find that rhythm. Knowing that this is something that comes a bit over time if you're not feeling it so natural in this moment. Any of these practices we do throughout the challenge can be repeated several times before you move on to the next day if you don't feel like you're quite there yet. I believe we have 1 more round or so, or you might be getting close. Once you finish that last round, I want you to take 1 more inhale with the arms up overhead. Exhale both knees in towards the chest. You can hug the knees in as far as what's comfortable for you. You can even hug underneath the knees if that feels better for the knees. Again, balancing out the breath, balancing out right and left sides within the body. And now I'd like you to go ahead and roll over onto your side. So notice how I'm supporting my head with the inside of my arm. I'm going to use the strength of my arms to press myself up. So we're going to do 1 more movement on the hands and the knees. If where you're working is a little harder, the surface is harder, I want you to take that blanket that you might have been using for your head and pad the knees. We're going to do what's called some cat stretches, sometimes called cat cow as well. This is like one of those staple yoga movements. So I'm going to align my hands directly beneath my shoulders, my hips over my knees, the tops of my feet, my shins are going to be grounded towards the mat. And just as much as I'm grounding down, I'm lifting myself up and away from the mat just to create a nice sturdy base here. I'm going to inhale. As I exhale, I'm going to start by curling my tailbone under. Navel moves in towards the spine, chin tucks in towards the chest. And as I inhale, I'm going to reach my tailbone back behind me as I begin to arch, and I'll eventually draw my shoulders away from my ears. My gaze will come forward. So it's an exhale. I'm going to curl my tailbone under. So movement starts within the pelvis. Head makes its way into the posture last. Again, inhaling, I start with my tail or the tipping of my pelvis. As the belly drops, as the chest opens between the arms. And let's see if we can start to find rhythm. Exhaling in this angry cat posture. Inhaling into this purring cat posture, or some would call this the cow, and the exhale, the cat. Let's see if we can do this 2 more rounds. Don't be alarmed if you find it a little more challenging to synchronize these movements with breath. It's a very common thing for beginning yoga practitioners to get a little caught up in the coordination. And as you last exhale, come into a more neutral position for a moment. And we're going to do one last pose to close us out. Inhale one more time. As you exhale, curl the tailbone under, sink the hips back towards the heels. Now, I never want you to force, but allow the hips to sink back to comfort. And then when there's no more movement in the hips, come to stretch the arms forward. So we're coming into extended child's pose. Again, we're going to hold and see if we can find balance in the breath now. You might even start to breathe in and out through the nose on both the inhale and the exhale now. This is a bit of a teaser for the type of breath that we're going to practice tomorrow. And then I want you to bring your hands beneath your chest, press yourself up a bit, and then we're going to slowly make our way into a seated position just as we begin. So again, notice I'm taking some propping beneath my hips. That's what my body requires. I like to sit up a little taller as it feels a little bit better for my low back and my hips. Some of you might use less, some of you might use more support. And so you've tried synchronizing movement with breath on your mat. And next, I'm going to show you how this can be applied on court. So I've filmed a little example of this that you'll watch next so that you can make that yoga for tennis connection with regards to the breath. Thank you for practicing, and I'll see you soon on the next day of our challenge. All right, so you've practiced your breathing now on the setting of your yoga mat. First without movement, then in synchronizing some movement on the mat with your breath. And now we're going to try this out on court. So I really like to do this as a starting point if it's not something that you're used to in mini tennis or short court. That's where you do this about a step behind the service line. You're hitting gently where the ball moves slower so that you have some time to really feel the breath. If you take this too far back initially and you're not used to it, it just gets lost in translation. So what I'm going to do is I'm here with Janet Clark. You can't see her, but she's my trusting hitting partner today. And we're going to come about a step behind the service line, and we're going to hit gently. And just like you did on your mats earlier, I'm going to synchronize my hitting with my breathing. So you did that with some gentle movements on mat. Now as I begin to feel my forward swing, I'm going to blow out through the mouth. Could be a fancy grunt if you're working on that. But the point is that you're getting the exhalation out as you swing. You're focusing on the exhalation. That way the inhalation naturally arises. Again, something that has to be practiced. So we're going to practice this in its gentler form. And then as you were to get more comfortable, of course, you back up to the baseline. You start to do this in your practices. And then the ultimate goal is that it just starts to trickle into your everyday play. So let me go ahead and demonstrate this a bit here. I'm going to hit with Janet. We're going to hit gently. So as I begin my forward swing, I'm going to blow out. Try to do that as smoothly as I can. And the idea is that the exhalation smooths out the stroke, and eventually it allows it to feel more free. I'm able to swing freely with less tension. So as I begin my forward swing, I'm exhaling, trying to keep those facial muscles relaxed. And it might not happen on every one, so that's just what your focus is. It's a great intention for the start of a warm-up at any rate, so we're not looking for perfection. But you're using that as a focal point and ultimately as something that's going to improve your game. So synchronizing stroke to that exhalation, focus on exhalation so that your inhalations naturally arise. Give that a shot in your practices this week and let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. See you soon.